Secretary's there. Okay, there we go. Good morning. I'm pleased to be here this morning with Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary of Transportation Tessler, Massachusetts Highway Safety Division Director Jeff Larrison, AAA Northeast President and CEO John Galvin, and Mark Cramer to discuss the filing of an act relative to improving safety on the roads of the Commonwealth. Improving road safety across Massachusetts and updating our driving laws is a critical part of public safety, and our administration's partnered with the legislature in the past to enact several important reforms. For example, we were proud to sign the hands-free bill into law to crack down on distracted driving and added new work zone speed limits as part of the transportation bond bill. However, with more drivers returning to the roads, we need to build on these efforts to keep drivers safe. Over the past year, even with the decrease in driving during the pandemic, and maybe in part because of that, Massachusetts saw 334 roadway deaths, most of which were single-car accidents, and the primary cause in many cases was speed. This was almost even with the 336 deaths in 2019. We can certainly help prevent these traffic deaths, so today we're refiling several provisions and some new proposals to promote road safety. An act relative to improving safety on the roads of the Commonwealth includes a variety of provisions that are aimed at improving road safety for all commuters and updating our travel laws. The bill addresses all forms of travel: motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. Most importantly, it will keep residents of Massachusetts safe and ensure that fewer travelers are killed on our roads. The legislation includes important provisions to ensure that the rules of the road are followed, and strict consequences if they're not. It builds on Haley's Law, which now requires real-time electronic communication from the Registry of Motor Vehicles to local police departments when a driver in their community is suspended for a serious offense. Haley's Law was named in memory of Haley Cramer, who was tragically killed by a driver with a suspended sentence. Haley's father, Mark, has worked tirelessly to implement the initial Haley's Law, and we're honored to have him here today with us as we introduce provisions to strengthen that statute. He's been working hard with Representative Phillips to get the language in these new provisions passed over the last few years, and we look forward to working with our colleagues in the legislature to get them signed into law. When the law was passed in 2015, it required the registry to notify local law enforcement when a driver in their community has had their license suspended for serious offenses. Unfortunately, some people still get behind the wheel, and today we're introducing new penalties to hold individuals who drive with a suspended license accountable. Today we're pleased to file a new provision that has enhanced penalties for drivers who drive after their license has been suspended. Enhanced penalties will apply where a person with a suspended license drives recklessly, causes serious bodily injury, or causes death, with fines and potential jail time. Another important proposal in this bill will allow law enforcement to stop motorists for not wearing a seatbelt, putting us in line with the 34 other states that already have this law in the books. We're also refiling language around commercial driver's licenses, updating laws to make sure that only safe and qualified drivers are able to operate some of the largest vehicles on the road. We originally filed this language in July of 2019 after our review of Massachusetts regulation of commercial driver's licenses following the tragic death of 7 individuals in New Hampshire, and we determined a broader need to strengthen the laws that we had on the books regulating commercial driver's licenses. Other provisions we're filing and refiling include establishing an advisory working group to review the use of electric scooters and other devices, mandating that drivers use a safe passing distance of 3 feet when traveling around bicyclists and pedestrians, expanding crash reporting requirements to include more information so we can better understand what types of accidents are occurring and why, and requiring all Commonwealth-owned and operated vehicles over 10,000 pounds to have side guards, convex mirrors, and crossover mirrors, mirroring the requirements that are already in place in Boston and Cambridge. Our roadways are a fundamental part of the Commonwealth's infrastructure. They serve as the main artery for our daily travels and commerce, and it's critically important that we keep them as safe as we possibly can. This requires constant adjustments based on factors like new technology and changes in travel modes and behavior. It also requires us to evaluate public safety data and collaborate with our colleagues in local government to understand the biggest challenges that law enforcement and safety officials are observing each and every year. We believe this road safety package we're filing today addresses some of the most pressing issues that are facing commuters, and we are confident passing this bill will help reduce roadway deaths and injuries and improve our transportation system safety overall. And we look forward to working with our colleagues in the legislature to get this done. And with that, I want to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor to discuss some additional details.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. I'm proud to be here today to continue building on the progress we began during the last legislative session in 2019, when our administration proposed several new bills to help save lives and prevent deaths on our roads. We are grateful to the legislature for working with us to enact these important provisions into law. And we thank you, John Galvin from AAA, and your team for your great work and your continued advocacy for the safety of the people in our Commonwealth and those who come through our Commonwealth. I just also want to say how honored I am to be here with Mark Cramer. Just want to say thank you for your continued advocacy, your hardship, turning it into action to make it better for other people in our Commonwealth. Your daughter, Haley, would be so proud of you, and we thank you. As the Governor said, this new safety legislation proposals would impact drivers, update some of our existing laws, keep up with the times to regulate things like electric scooters and electric bicycles, and give cities and towns an extra tool to stop drivers running red lights. I'd like to highlight a few of these details and just expand on some of the points the Governor made, in particular, the ones that will assist municipalities in this effort. First, the traffic camera enforcement local option will allow municipalities to place red light cameras at intersections to enforce red lights. This will allow communities to fine the registered owner of a car that runs a red light. The cameras would be restricted to collecting photographs only upon a violation and only of the vehicle license plate. The violations would include running a red light and making an illegal turn on a red light. It's been shown in studies that red light cameras, which are used in over 300 communities across our country today, have been instrumental in reducing dangerous accidents and roadway deaths. That data is very important to inform these provisions. Relative to CDLs, during the last legislative session, time ran out for the Transportation Committee to fully process the proposal relative to CDLs that the Governor mentioned. So we're including them again in this filing, and it would make sure that we are updating our laws and putting them in line with federal law to address statutory deficiencies we found during our review process. I'd like to talk a little about some of these new methods of mobility as we continue to move towards the reopening of the state post-COVID. We expect to see more micro-mobility devices like scooters. So far, cities and towns have been unable to move forward with these new modes of transportation. But with the growth in use and acceptance of things like scooters and bicycles, there's a lack of local regulation. This bill will call for Mass DOT to convene an advisory group to recommend a new statutory framework to ensure safe use while encouraging these low-carbon transportation alternatives. That'll be a good effort led by Mass DOT and some key experts in this area to help us and to work, obviously, in conjunction with our municipalities to approach this in a thoughtful manner and to ensure at the same time the safety of our roadways for all. This package of proposals will save lives, and we look forward to working with our elected leaders, both in the State House and in the state legislature, as well as with our municipal officials, to get these proposals vetted and reviewed and finally enacted into law. We couldn't do this without our external partners, and I want to name a number of groups that have worked really hard to get us to this point, but obviously recognize there's more work to do. The Vision Zero Coalition, Mass Bike, the Boston Bicyclists Union, Livable Streets, Walk Boston, AAA Northeast, Safe Roads Alliance, Students Against Drunk Driving, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We thank you all for your advocacy and turning your own personal stories into action to help others. And with that, I'd now like to turn it over to Secretary Tesler.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your leadership on this important issue. I look forward to working to get these important provisions adopted and implemented. Becoming registrar after the tragic New Hampshire crash in 2019 that cost 7 lives was a moment of truth for me as to the importance of both strong laws and the effective implementation of those laws, but also the tragic impact one driver's decisions can have on so many other lives. As has been mentioned, it is a sad fact that the death toll due to tragic and avoidable crashes has continued nearly unabated throughout the pandemic, even with the reduced driving during the past year. The twin factors of speed and distracted driving continue to be contributing factors. This legislation will provide us with the additional tools to make our streets safer for all participants. Seatbelt use is a proven lifesaver. Massachusetts lags the nation in this most simple action. We need to be better, and primary enforcement is an effective tool in that effort. Haley's Law will ensure that those who act with such indifference to their fellow citizens that they would still drive after losing their license and then cause harm will result in an enhanced punishment appropriate to their carelessness. In addition, red light camera enforcement has been proven again and again to reduce fatal crashes at red lights and pedestrian deaths as well. And allowing communities to use this tool in dangerous intersections will have carryover effects and carryover benefits, as studies have shown consistently that drivers tend to run reds at non-camera locations less when other locations have cameras. As work from home options have increased, we are seeing more people able to forego hours of commuting and use more walking, biking, and other forms of alternative transportation. And as more roads are built with all users in mind, automobile, bicycle, pedestrian, scooter, etc., it is important that we do what we can to make those roads safe for all users. This legislation would make progress on that front, encouraging better spacing for passing on non-motor vehicle traffic and updating the crash reporting laws of the Commonwealth to ensure that all crashes are being submitted so that we can better understand and work to eliminate dangerous situations and locations. Finally, more than a year has passed since the distracted driving law went into effect last February. The more than 22,000 citations written in that time show that much work remains to be done. I am pleased that we have worked with our partners in safety to focus on and change this dangerous behavior. So thanks again for the opportunity to cover this critical legislation, and I believe now I'm turning it over to Jeff Larrison from the Governor's Highway Safety Bureau. Thank you, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and I want to thank EOPS Secretary Turco as well for allowing me to represent the agency. Before I start my written speech, I want to thank the administration, the Governor and Lieutenant Governor for the leadership that you have brought to highway safety over the last couple of years. I know, having spent a good portion of my career working in highway safety, it has been recognized and greatly appreciated by the folks who have been in the advocacy area where I was before. Far too many people die on the roads in Massachusetts, and preventing these tragedies is a priority for all of us, and those of us in EOPS and the Office of Grants and Research and the Highway Safety Division. These common sense proposals are critical to ensure that drivers and passengers and vulnerable road users like pedestrians and bicyclists can stay safe on their way to work, to school, on their day-to-day lives. And as we move out of the pandemic, there will be a shift in travel and transportation patterns as more people telework and choose travel in new ways and with different modes. These proposals here we're discussing today are important as we move through that transition. With regard to seatbelts, the seatbelt use rate, as the Secretary just mentioned, in Massachusetts is one of the lowest in the nation. We're at 46 out of the 50 states in this country, and that's unfortunate. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that seatbelts saved 60 lives in Massachusetts in 2018. An additional 45 lives can be saved in a single year if everyone were to be belted. Tragically, over half of the people who are killed on our roads in Massachusetts are unbelted, and these are entirely preventable tragedies. We know from national data that states with a primary seatbelt law have a seatbelt use rate that averages 10 to 12 points higher than states that have a secondary law, as we do in Massachusetts currently. This increase in Massachusetts seatbelt use rate, which will translate into saving, on average, 15 lives a year. In Massachusetts, about a quarter of our road fatalities are made up of vulnerable road users, bicyclists and pedestrians. From 2016 to 2020, there were 41 bicyclist fatalities, and during that same time, 359 pedestrians were killed on our roads. The 3-foot requirement in this bill will keep safe not only bicyclists, but pedestrians as well. And those pedestrians, by the way, includes police and fire personnel working on the side of the road, as well as workers for the DOT and local municipalities who are on the side of the road as well. The 3-foot requirement provides a clearly stated distance for safe passing means, and it will help drivers to reconsider and better understand the distance they need to keep from pedestrians and bicyclists and others. Regarding truck side guards and the convex mirrors and backup cameras, we know that this requirement will save lives. People have been and continue to be killed due to the inability of large truck drivers to see everything around them. These measures will prevent crashes. And then concerning the standardized crash reporting section in the bill, we in the Highway Safety Division, folks who are working on the state side, we need better data, so complete data for road incidents, so that we can understand what's happening on the road, where it's happening, and we can make better decisions about how to use our funds and to support road safety in the Commonwealth. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to speak here. I would now like to introduce Mark Cramer, who is an advocate for Haley's Law.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind words, Joe. Along with being the husband to my wife, Ivy, nothing provides me more pride and joy than being the father of my 2 daughters, Haley and Morgan. Nearly 7 years ago, on June 15th, 2014, on Father's Day, we suffered the unimaginable tragedy of losing Haley. Haley was killed while standing on the side of the road by a reckless driver. She was 20 and just entering the prime of her life. This was no random accident. This was preventable. The driver knowingly operated the vehicle on a non-administrative suspended license. Had this law we're discussing today been in effect on that day, Haley may very well be here with us today. She would have graduated from college, earned her doctorate in physical therapy, commenced her career dedicated to helping others, and perhaps even started her own family. This is why Ivy Morgan and I have worked tirelessly, along with the support of so many others, including Secretary Tessler, State Representative Ted Phillips, Majority Leader Claire Cronin, Brian Keyes, and the Massachusetts Major City Police Chiefs, to pass this bill into law and prevent other families from suffering such a devastating tragedy. I'd also like to take this opportunity to personally thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for filing this important piece of legislation and supporting our efforts to get this into law. The bill is simple, fundamentally fair, and absolutely necessary to help protect the safety of the public. Operators under our proposed bill who have had their license suspended or revoked for serious non-administrative driving offenses, or who are unlicensed and knowingly climb behind the wheel, are exhibiting a complete and blatant disregard for the laws of the Commonwealth and the safety of the community. These offenders need to know the consequences of their actions are going to be severe when they cause bodily injury, serious bodily injury, or death. There needs to be significantly stronger statutes with appropriately tiered penalties for those who knowingly and repeatedly flout the law and endanger others when they get behind the wheel. The promise of formidable penalties shapes behavior. If enacting penalties commensurate with the recklessness and negligence of this behavior prevents one crash, and it will, we will save another family, more likely many families, from the horror my wife, daughter, and I live with every day, and this reform will be a success. Driving a